She spoke clearly, without jargon, translating complex data into a simple, powerful, strategic narrative. She didn't look at Bella or Alistair. She looked directly at Madame Delacroix. The room was silent again, but this time it was a silence of comprehension, of respect. Madame Delacroix's icy expression thawed into one of keen interest. She looked from Ellie to the screen, and back again. And the correlation you cited between digital touchpoints and cart conversion. One of the other executives piped up, "Can you elaborate on the statistical significance there?" For the next 15 minutes, it was no longer Bella's presentation. It was a conversation between Eleanor Vance and the Eclat team. She answered every question with facts, figures, and an unshakable command of the subject matter. She was no longer wallpaper. She was the main event. Bella remained standing at the head of the table, silent and obsolete. Alistair watched, his face a mask of stunned disbelief. He was watching a piece of office furniture transform into a weapon. When the questions finally subsided, Madame Delacroix leaned back in her chair. She looked past Bella, past Alistair, her gaze settling once more on Ellie. "Mercy, Mademoiselle Vance," Ellie said. "Eleanor Vance." "Merci, Mademoiselle Vance," Madame Delacroix said, with a nod of genuine respect. That was the clarity we were looking for. They won the account. Or rather, they solidified it. The email from Eclat that afternoon confirming their partnership for Q4 specifically mentioned their appreciation for the in-depth, data-driven clarifications provided in the meeting. The office was buzzing. People were congratulating Bella, who accepted with a strained smile, but the whispers were different this time. Samira walked by Ellie's desk and placed a bar of expensive chocolate on it without a word, just a wide, triumphant grin. Even Arthur Fromet, on his way to fix a printer, gave her a gruff, "Heard you showed them, Eleanor. Good on you." The confrontation Ellie had braced herself for never came. Bella avoided her for the rest of the day. But at 6 p.m., just as Ellie was packing her bag, Bella appeared at her desk. "Ellie," she said quietly. The usual bravado was gone. "Thank you. You saved me in there. You saved the account." "I was supporting my team lead," Ellie said, quoting Alistair's words back at her, unable to resist the small twist of the knife. Bella flinched. "No, that's not what you were doing. You were doing my job, a job you should have gotten." The admission hung in the air between them. "I'm sorry," Bella whispered. "I know I'm not qualified for it. My father, he's friends with one of the board members. Alistair was told to find a place for me. I thought if I just smiled enough and learned the buzzwords, it would be okay." The confession didn't make Ellie feel better. It just made the whole system feel even more rotten. But the apology, the raw honesty in Bella's eyes, disarmed some of her fury, replacing it with a profound weariness. "It's not your fault the world works like this," Ellie said, her voice softer than she intended. "But it's not my fault I know how the back-end systems work." Bella nodded, a tear tracing a path through her perfect foundation. "I know." On Monday morning, an email from Alistair appeared in Ellie's inbox. Subject: quick chat. Her stomach clenched. This was it. The reprimand for upstaging her boss. The talk about not being a team player. She walked to his glass office, her back straight, ready for a fight. Alistair gestured for her to sit. He looked uncomfortable, avoiding her gaze. "Eleanor," he began, steepling his fingers. "About the Eclat meeting." He cleared his throat. "That was an impressive performance." "I was just providing the requested data," Ellie said neutrally. "Yes. Well, it's become clear to me that your analytical skills are a significant asset to this company. An asset we have perhaps been underutilizing." He still couldn't bring himself to say he was wrong. "The partners and I have been discussing a restructuring. We're creating a new role, Head of Marketing Analytics and Strategy." He slid a document across the desk. It was an official offer letter. The title was there in black and white. The salary underneath it made her eyes widen. It was a 35% raise. It's a director-level position, Alistair said. You'd report directly to me. You would have oversight on the data strategy for all our major accounts. Bella and the other team leads would be required to clear their strategic proposals through you. Ellie stared at the letter. It wasn't pity. It wasn't a consolation prize. It was a checkmate. They couldn't fire Bella. Nepotism ran too deep. They couldn't promote Ellie to Bella's job without admitting a massive error. So they had created a new box for her. A higher box. A box with authority. A box built on the foundation of her competence. She hadn't needed to become prettier, or thinner, or more charming. She had simply become too good to ignore. She had made her value so undeniable that the system had to bend around her. I accept, she said, her voice steady. Walking back to her desk, offer letter in hand, she passed a large window. She caught her reflection in the glass. It was the same face, the blotchy skin, the tired eyes, the mousy hair, the sensible M&S blouse. She was still Eleanor Vance, the woman who was invisible to men in bars. The woman who spent her nights worrying about her mother's medical bills. But for the first time, she saw something else. She saw a woman who had faced down a boardroom of sharks and won. A woman who had stared into the face of a system designed to overlook her and forced it to see her. She wasn't wallpaper anymore. She was the architect. And from now on, everyone was going to have to work from her blueprints. The 3 days leading up to the ECLAT presentation were a masterclass in passive aggression. Alistair, in his effort to re-establish the hierarchy he preferred, directed all his communications through Bella. He'd email her with a question about a specific data point, and a moment later, Bella would appear at Ellie's desk like a nervous messenger owl, reciting the query almost verbatim. Ellie would provide the answer, Bella would scurry back, and Alistair would receive a reply from his star team lead, solidifying his belief that he had chosen correctly. Ellie played her part with quiet professionalism. She was helpful, efficient, and utterly indispensable. She built a cheat sheet for Bella with key talking points and simplified explanations for the complex slides. She was setting her up not to fail, but to walk a tightrope, a very high, very thin tightrope. Are you sure about this? Samira asked her over a hurried lunch in the sterile office canteen on Thursday. You've basically handed her a script to a play you wrote, directed, and built the set for. She's going to take the standing ovation. Let her, Ellie said, pushing a piece of bland chicken around her plate. The script only covers the first act. The Q&A is improvisation. And she can't improvise. Samira's eyes widened slightly. That's cold, Vance. I like it. It's not cold, Ellie countered, though a part of her knew it was. It's strategy. It's what I'm paid for. I've just changed who the target demographic is. Friday morning arrived, gray and drizzly. Ellie chose her outfit with deliberate care. It was the same as always. Black trousers, a simple navy blouse from M&S, flat, sensible shoes. No makeup, save for a dusting of powder to try and dull the shine on her face. Her mousy brown hair was pulled back into its customary tight ponytail. She was not dressing for the job she wanted. She was dressing as herself. She was the control in her own experiment. The ECLAT team arrived at 10. They were as intimidatingly chic as their brand. 3 French executives, 2 men and a woman, all dressed in sharp dark suits with an air of effortless Parisian authority. The woman, Madame Delacroix, was clearly in charge. Her eyes were like chips of ice, scanning the room and finding everyone wanting. Alistair greeted them with his practiced oleaginous charm. Bella, to her credit, looked the part. She wore a cream-colored silk blouse and tailored trousers that made her look both professional and ethereal. Her blonde hair was perfect. She smiled, and the tension in the room eased by a fraction. Bella will be walking us through our proposed Q4 strategy, Alistair announced, gesturing to the head of the boardroom table. Ellie took her seat at the side, by the laptop, the designated slide clicker. The wallpaper, Bella began. She was smooth, confident, her voice even. She moved through the opening slides, the ones about brand, ethos, and creative vision, with practiced ease. She was delivering the script Ellie had written for her, and she was doing it well. Ellie felt a pang of something complicated, part resentment, part pride in her own work being presented so effectively. Alistair was practically purring, nodding along and shooting encouraging looks at Bella. Then they got to the data-heavy section. Bella's voice became a little less certain. She was reciting now, not presenting. She read the talking points from the slides, her eyes flicking towards the screen more often. Double quotes, ... And as the regression analysis on slide 28 indicates, she said, her voice faltering for a split second, we project a 15% increase in engagement from the 8 to 24 demographic by focusing ad spend on the identified micro-influencer tier. Madame Delacroix held up a single, perfectly manicured hand. The presentation stopped dead. Excuse me, Mademoiselle Dubois, she said, her French accent sharpening the edges of her words. A 15% projection is optimistic. On what historical data is this model based? Your Q2 pilot program showed only a 6% lift with a similar strategy, if I recall correctly. Silence. Ellie's heart began to beat a slow, heavy drum. This was it. This was the question not covered in the cheat sheet. Bella's smile was cemented on her face, but her eyes were wide with panic. She looked at the screen, then at Alistair. Alistair gave a slight, helpless shrug, his own charm useless against a direct data challenge. That's an excellent question, Madame Delacroix, Bella began, stalling. The model is based on an aggregate of the most recent market trends. Which trends? Madame Delacroix pressed, leaning forward. The data from our competitor, Lumiere, suggests a saturation point for influencer marketing in that specific demographic. Their ROI has been flat for 2 quarters. Why would yours be different? What is the variable you have identified that they have not? Bella was completely lost. The color had drained from her face. She looked like a terrified child. She glanced desperately at Ellie. In that moment, Ellie had a choice. She could remain silent. She could let Bella's silence stretch until it became a deafening klaxon of her incompetence. She could watch as Alistair's prize filly stumbled and fell at the most critical hurdle. Justice would be served. But looking at the ice-cold stare of Madame Delacroix, Ellie realized that silence wouldn't be a victory for her. It would be a failure for Aura Creative. Her work, her strategy, would be dismissed because its messenger was inept. She had built a fortress of data, and she was the only one who knew how to defend it. Before anyone else could speak, Ellie cleared her throat. It was a small sound, but in the tense silence, it was a thunderclap. Every head in the room turned towards her. If I may, Ellie said, her voice quiet but firm. She didn't wait for permission. She stood up. Madame Delacroix, you are correct to question the projection. The 15% figure is indeed optimistic if we only consider the standard variables. However, our model is not based on standard variables. She used the mouse to navigate backwards 2 slides to a complex chart full of scatter plots and trend lines. A slide Bella had skipped over with the words, and here's some of the deep data. What our analysis of the Lumiere data revealed, Ellie continued, pointing to a specific cluster on the chart, is that while their overall ROI is flat, their engagement metric on video content under 30 seconds, specifically on the TikTok and Instagram Reels platforms, has a compounding growth rate of 9% quarter-over-quarter. They are misinterpreting their own data, focusing on static image posts where the market is indeed saturated. Our strategy isolates this specific high-growth variable. We are not just targeting influencers. We are targeting a specific format of content. The 15% projection is based on redirecting 40% of the proposed budget to this video-centric approach. The model, and the raw data it's built on, is in the appendix for your review. For the first time since the promotion, Ellie felt something other than resentment. It was a cold, clear, and utterly terrifying sense of power. Bella wasn't her boss in this room. She was a drowning woman, and Ellie was standing on the shore, holding the only life raft. "I can't possibly make sense of this by tomorrow," Bella admitted, her composure finally cracking. "Ellie, I need your help. I have no idea what to do." Ellie looked at her, at the pretty, desperate face, at the woman who had effortlessly taken what Ellie had worked so hard for. She could say no. She could say, "That's a great point for the data dive, Bella. We'll circle back." She could watch her fail, spectacularly. It would be justice. But then she looked at the list of questions again. This wasn't just about Bella. This was about Eklat. This was about the work she had done, the intricate architecture she had built. Letting Bella fail meant letting her own work burn with her, and a darker, more strategic thought wormed its way into her mind. An opportunity. "Okay," Ellie said, her voice steady and calm. "Here's what we're going to do. Book this room for the rest of the day. Cancel your meetings. Get me a large coffee, black, no sugar. We're not leaving until this is done." Bella looked at her, a wave of relief washing over her features. "Oh, thank you, Ellie. You're a lifesaver. I'll get the coffee right now." As Bella scurried away, a grateful subordinate, Ellie pulled the list of questions towards her. She wasn't saving Bella. She was building a cage. A cage made of data, of facts, of irrefutable competence. And when it was finished, everyone, including Alistair, was going to see exactly who was holding the key. The work was grueling. For the next 8 hours, Ellie was in her element. She moved through the company's data vaults with the speed and precision of a surgeon. She pulled reports, ran analyses, built predictive models. She dictated, and Bella typed. "No, not like that," Ellie would snap, pointing at the screen. "Your axis is mislabeled. That implies causation, not correlation. Change it." "What's a regression analysis?" Bella asked at one point, her brow furrowed in confusion. Ellie took a deep breath, fighting the urge to scream. She explained it in the simplest terms possible, like she was talking to a child. Slowly, painstakingly, a presentation began to take shape, but it wasn't Bella's presentation. The fluffy, aesthetic-driven slides were replaced one by one with hard data, sharp insights, and undeniable strategic logic. It was Ellie's work, her brain, her expertise, front and center. By 8 p.m., they were done. A 50-slide deck that was dense, powerful, and irrefutable. Bella stared at it, looking pale and exhausted. "I would never have been able to do this," she whispered, looking at Ellie with a mixture of awe and fear. "I know," Ellie said simply. She packed up her laptop. "Send it to Alistair. Put both our names on the title slide." "Of course," Bella agreed quickly. Walking out into the cool London night, Ellie felt a grim satisfaction. It wasn't triumph, not yet. It was the feeling of a chess player who has just moved a pawn into a position of devastating power. The game was far from over, but for the first time in a very long time, she felt like she was finally playing. The next day, Alistair called them both into his glass-walled office. He was beaming. "Ladies, outstanding work," he said, gesturing to his monitor, which displayed their presentation. "Absolutely outstanding. This is the kind of deep-dive strategic thinking that sets Aura apart." He looked directly at Bella. "Bella, this is a fantastic start to your leadership. You've clearly drilled down into the data and extracted some powerful insights." Ellie felt a familiar surge of hot rage. He hadn't even registered her name on the title slide. He was giving Bella all the credit. Well, I have to be honest, Alistair," Bella began. And for a heart-stopping second, Ellie thought she was going to do the right thing. This was a real team effort. Of course, Alistair said jovially. Synergy, that's the key. But the data analysis, Bella continued, her eyes flicking nervously towards Ellie. That was all Eleanor. She's just incredible, with the numbers. I honestly couldn't have done any of it without her. Alistair's gaze shifted to Ellie. It was the first time all day he had truly looked at her. There was a flicker of surprise in his eyes, a brief, almost imperceptible reassessment. He had seen her as furniture for so long, he seemed startled to find she could talk. Ah, yes, well, he stammered, recovering his smoothness. Excellent work, Eleanor. A crucial contribution. Exactly what we need from our senior associates, supporting your team lead. The praise was a backhanded compliment, designed to put her back in her box. Supporting, but something had changed. The admission had been made in front of him. The truth was out, however reluctantly spoken. Now, Alistair continued, turning his charm back on Bella. For the presentation on Friday, Bella, you'll be leading it, naturally. Ellie, you'll be there to run the slides and be on hand for any technical questions in the background. He was still trying to keep her in the background, but the background was no longer a safe place for him, because Ellie now knew exactly what the client's questions were, and she suspected Bella wouldn't be able to answer them on her own. Of course, Ellie said, her voice betraying nothing. I'll be there to support the team. As they left his office, Samira caught her eye from across the room and gave her a subtle, questioning thumbs up. Ellie gave a tiny, almost invisible nod. The trap was set. Now, all she had to do was wait for Friday. The email landed in every inbox at 9:02 a.m., a digital guillotine severing the morning's fragile peace. Subject, exciting team announcement. Eleanor Vance didn't need to open it. She could feel the announcement in the shift of the office's atmosphere. The sudden flurry of forced-sounding congratulations erupting from the open-planned space. Her own desk, tucked away in a corner by the rattling air-conditioning unit, felt like a pocket of dead air. She clicked it open anyway, a familiar act of self-flagellation.team. I am absolutely delighted to announce the promotion of Isabella Dubois to the position of team lead for the Consumer Lifestyle Division. In her time with us, Bella has shown incredible initiative and a real flair for brand synergy. I have no doubt she will lead the team to new heights. Please join me in congratulating her. Best, Alistair Finch, head of client strategy Aura Creative. Ellie stared at the words, her coffee turning to acid in her stomach. Incredible initiative. The initiative to ask Ellie how to export a mailing list from Salesforce. Flair for brand synergy. The flair for picking a color palette that matched her handbag. She had trained Isabella. The memory was sharp and galling. 6 months ago, a bright-eyed, perfectly coiffed girl had been assigned to her desk for onboarding. Ellie had patiently walked her through the complex analytics software, the back-end content management system, the labyrinthian server directories, where 7 years of campaign data were stored. Isabella had smiled, nodded, and absorbed approximately none of it, her attention snagged by every passing notification on her rose-gold phone. Oh, the numbers bit is so dense, isn't it? She'd chirped, her voice like wind chimes. I'm much more of a big-picture person. Now, the big-picture person was her boss. Well, I for one am shocked, a dry voice said beside her. Samira Khan leaned against the partition separating their desks, holding a mug that read, I'm silently correcting your grammar. Shocked. I tell you, I had my money on you, Ellie. All 5 pence of it. Ellie managed a weak, brittle smile. Don't spend it all in one place. Seriously? Samira lowered her voice, her dark eyes sharp. It's a joke. She was asking me the difference between there and there in a client email last week. Team lead. She has flair, Ellie said, the word tasting like ash. Oh, she has flair, all right. Samira scoffed. And great hair. And a jawline you could slice cheese with, apparently. That's what qualifies one to lead a multi-million-pound account portfolio these days. Maybe we should all just get blowouts and veneers instead of performance reviews. It was the third time. The first had been 3 years ago. Chloe, a bubbly 25-year-old, whose primary skill was remembering everyone's birthday, had been promoted to a junior project manager role Ellie had been perfect for. 2 years after that, it was Amber, who had a laugh that made Alistair's eyes crinkle at the corners. She left 6 months later for a better opportunity after bungling a major campaign launch, a mess Ellie had quietly spent 3 weekends cleaning up. Now, it was Isabella. The pattern wasn't just a pattern anymore. It was company policy, unwritten but rigidly enforced. The day crawled by in a haze of resentment. Ellie sat in a team meeting where Bella, in her new capacity, outlined her vision. It was a word salad of buzzwords: holistic, leveraging, authenticity, storytelling. It was clear she was just repeating things she'd heard Alistair say. When Ellie tried to interject with a point about recent market data showing a decline in engagement with their target demographic, Bella smiled brightly at her. "That's a great point for the data dive, Ellie," she'd said, a masterful dismissal disguised as validation. "We'll definitely circle back to that once we've blue-skied the creative." The men in the room, even the senior ones, nodded along. They looked at Bella when she spoke, their attention rapt. When Ellie spoke, their eyes drifted to their laptops, or the clock on the wall. She was the human equivalent of a spreadsheet, essential for function, but tedious to look at. The hurt wasn't just professional. It was deeply, painfully personal. Ellie had made a sort of grim peace with her appearance years ago. She was a product of her genetics and her circumstances. Her father's ruddy, pronto rosacea complexion, her mother's stocky build. She was a size 18, in a world built for size 8 south. The clothes that fit were from Marks & Spencer, practical and durable, but utterly devoid of style. She couldn't afford a session with a dermatologist for her persistent adult acne, not when her mother's MS required a new prescription that wasn't fully covered by the NHS. Her evenings weren't spent on dating apps or in trendy wine bars. They were spent on the phone with her mom, talking her through a new symptom, or meticulously managing a budget that was stretched to its breaking point. Work was supposed to be the one place where none of that mattered. It was the great meritocratic equalizer. You were judged on the quality of your output, the sharpness of your mind, the reliability of your work ethic. For 7 years, she had clung to that belief like a religion. She had been the first in, the last out. She was the one people came to when the systems failed, when the data was corrupted, when a deadline was about to be spectacularly missed. She was the firm's invisible architect, the one who built and maintained the foundations, while others sunned themselves on the roof terrace, and, for 7 years, she had been proven wrong. Hard work wasn't enough. It had to be packaged correctly. It needed a pretty face, a charming laugh, a slender frame in a Zara blazer. That evening, she trudged home to her small flat in Zone 4. The journey on the packed Central Line, a claustrophobic ordeal. The flat was neat, clean, and lonely. She ate a bowl of soup for dinner, scrolling through her phone. Isabella had, of course, posted about her promotion on Instagram. There was a picture of her holding a bouquet of flowers by her desk, smiling, dazzlingly. The caption was a nauseating performance of humility. So incredibly humbled and excited for this new chapter. Couldn't have done it without my amazing team. Ellie felt a hot, venomous rage rise in her throat. Your amazing team. I am your amazing team. I'm the reason your reports are coherent. I'm the reason you know how to log your hours. She typed out a comment, her thumbs flying across the screen. Congratulations. You're completely unqualified and only got it because Alistair wants to sleep with you. Her finger hovered over the post button. Her heart hammered against her ribs. It would feel so good. A single, self-destructive act of truth-telling. It would also get her fired, sued, and blacklisted from the industry. She deleted the text, letter by letter, and threw her phone onto the sofa as if it were on fire. The next morning, the crisis arrived. It always did. "Ellie, have you got a sec?" It was Bella, standing at her desk, looking uncharacteristically flustered. Her usual perfect chignon had a few stray hairs, and there was a crease of panic between her brows. "We have a problem," Bella whispered, gesturing for Ellie to follow her to a small, windowless meeting room. It's Eclat. Eclat Perfumes was their newest, biggest client. A legacy French perfume house, trying to capture a younger market. They were prestigious, demanding, and worth a fortune to the firm. Ellie had built the entire data-driven pitch that had won them the account 3 months ago. "They've moved up the deadline for the Q4 strategy presentation," Bella said, wringing her hands. "It's not next Friday, it's this Friday. And they've sent a list of questions, very specific questions." She slid a piece of paper across the table. Ellie scanned the list. Her blood ran cold. These weren't big-picture questions. They were brutal, surgical inquiries. Provide a full regression analysis of competitor ad spend versus market share for the last 24 months. Detail the projected ROI for the influencer tiering strategy with segmented demographic data. What is the statistical correlation between our proposed digital touchpoints and cart conversion rates based on our pilot data? Provide the raw data set. This wasn't marketing. It was mathematics. It was Ellie world, and it was a language Isabella didn't speak a single word of. "Alistair wants a full draft of the presentation by end of day tomorrow to review," Bella said, her voice trembling slightly. I've looked at the files you built for the pitch, but it's all numbers and code. I don't understand it."